Welcome to Breathe, our evening class. This is all about the evening wind down, and it's really helpful to be in a place where you don't have a lot of things that you're anticipating coming up. So it's good to be kind of at the end of your activity for the day, if that's possible for you. We have a couple of props here that are super helpful. I've got 2 racket balls. You can use other kinds of balls. There's pinky balls and bounce balls. And the thing about this is, if you can see here, it's got, I'll do the blue one, it's a little easier to see my thumb. It's got a good amount of squish to it. So 2 of these equal size. We'll use them for various things during the course of this class. You don't have them today. You can go get them, you can pause the recording and go find yours, whatever you need, but these will be really handy to have. You can do some of the exercises. We'll do plenty of things without them, but they're really helpful to have. 2 yoga blocks, which is standard practice for all of our online in-home classes. And then a rolled up bath towel. And it's just folded in half lengthwise, and this is rolled up short end to short end. And it's kind of a prop, a substitute bolster. All of these things are props, particularly the block and the towel. Then we have an eye pillow. Now, this is your homemade eye pillow. Almost everybody has one of these. Hand towel or washcloth. This is a washcloth is best because you don't have too much extra fabric. You can use a hand towel if you need, and it's just folded in half. You can fold it in half again if you wanted a narrower strip. You might find that the wider strip is better for you to block out more light, which is the goal. If you are fancy and happen to have an eye pillow handy, this would be a great place to use it in this class. So you can have that with you as well. These are the props that we're going to have with us. One more thing that I want to introduce, my giant aqua water bottle. And the reason I have it here is I believe it's really important to lead by example. Water is one of the most restorative things we can do for ourselves. So I like to have it on hand when I'm teaching, just because I talk a lot in order to teach. And it's good to kind of keep my throat open, but it's also keeps all of my cells open and fluids moving through my body so that I've got lots of good things coming in and clearing excess stuff, sort of stagnant stuff out is one of the things water does. It really flushes stuff through you, which is important to do at the end of the day. You think back to what you've done during the day today, you probably have already done a lot, been through many thought processes, various different mental and emotional states throughout the day. And the end of the day now is sort of the accumulation. You built all that up. Sleep is one of the ways we offload the accumulation and metabolize it. And water is another one. Those are 2 really basic ones. We don't know what the quality of our sleep is going to be like tonight. Hasn't happened yet. Water is one thing we can control for sure in terms of how much we get. And we're very, it's a great thing that in our civilization, clean, potable water is available on demand. Now, I say that and it sounds like, yeah, tap water, big deal. Well, actually it is in a lot of other parts of the world. So it's just another one of those moments where we can actually acknowledge something that we take for granted, like the air around us, the water we drink, right? It's just something available to us, and we often don't use that resource. So I'm here as the voice of reason to encourage us all, myself included, to do the right thing. I drink about 64 ounces of water, not usually late in the day. So this is me finishing up my water intake today. But throughout the day, usually starting with water before coffee, because I need to replenish what was used up overnight and metabolize a lot in the night, a lot of our water supply. So we're going to start out today with all our props around us. Our mat is like an island, and these props are various tools we have available to us on this island. We're going to kind of put them off to the side for the moment, but within easy reach. And the whole pacing of this class, you guys, is supposed to be very mellow and even. It's a very even pacing so that we can come out of the hustle that much of our work and family life and the culture we live in brings us into. A lot of hustle. There's value in the hustle for sure, but we need to shift out of that and shift out of this various states of crisis mode we enter into during the day to allow us to mellow out a little bit. Our systems need to discharge because that buildup. You'll hear me talking about it a lot, so I just repeat it so that the message can really get in, because we get so many other messages and we're so distracted and other focused. So one of the ways we minimize distraction is by bringing stillness to our body, or bringing ourselves into an environment where there's not a lot else going on. We have the TV and radio going. Hopefully we have a room where there aren't a lot of people, pets, etc., coming and going, where we can kind of sink into ourselves and quiet down a little bit. And then we'll take an eye pillow or washcloth over the eyes. And you can just take a moment when you put that on to gently press with the heels of the hands, and just put a little pressure. Will end up being on the tops of the eyebrows and the cheekbones, actually on the eyeballs themselves. So cup your palms a little bit, and it should just kind of relieve some of the tension that we didn't even know we had that we've been carrying around in our face. Our faces express a myriad of emotions all day long as we go through things. Disgust, anger, anxiousness, frustration, fear, relief, humor, shock, delight, so many things, sleepiness, all the things, boredom. Our face is very involved, right? So this is a decompress. And it's really, when we think about it, a little bit more full body view. This is the top of our spine. Our head is the top of our spine. And so we're starting a neuromuscular decompress at the top of the spine here. Now we're going to bring our attention to the bottom of the spine. Put the arms down if they're still up there, giving that feedback, and rest. The arms below the shoulders, but away from the sides. It's that midpoint between those two. Take your feet wide to the edge of the mat and drop the knees together to touch. Soft bend in the knees. Find ease in the back of the hips. And just soften in here. All right. See if you let your shoulders relax into the floor. Feel your chest and collarbone sort of float open. Shoulder blades glide down the back. And give yourself a few nice deep breaths here. According to the class, that's what we came here to do. Now, we've been doing it unconsciously all day long. So it seems like no big deal, right? But actually, the way we breathe can be a great benefit to our health or a great detriment. It can be either or, and it's not a given. So one of the things that we can do is we breathe intentionally, bring our awareness to it, is we can really increase our health and vitality and lung capacity. So we're going to bring our awareness to that. Just start with both hands on your ribs, right? So you take your hands down to the tips of the ribs here and let your heels wrap around towards the sides, fingertips rest on those front points. Okay, and then find a place where your shoulders are easy, so you're not feeling them gliding up into the ears. So that's the correct angle for you of your elbows. Might even feel like the back of your arm is, back of your upper arm is getting a little stretch along the floor, a little traction. Go ahead and take a nice deep breath here. Feel the space come in between each vertebra and rib. They're connected in back. Ribs are in the front, vertebrae are, we feel more in the back because they run through the middle of the body. And exhale, soften chest, shoulders, and rib cage down into the floor. Not pressing it into the ground, not compressing. It really is a full relaxation. We're just going to witness the breath for 2 more breaths here. Breathing in, nice and easy, letting everything open up without strain. And then exhale. Let everything soften and fall back in. See if you can melt the back side of the body into the floor. Great. So we can increase our vitality by increasing our lung capacity. And increasing our lung capacity is not just focused on the inhale. The inhale's fine and lovely, and we do want a big breath of air. But scientifically, the best way to get a big breath of air, ironically, naturally, without any forcefulness or straining in the muscles, just building that deep breath rhythm, is to exhale all the air out, very intentionally emptying the lungs, because the lungs are a vacuum. And so when they empty out, then they refill to repressurize up to the air pressure in the room, right? So let's take a nice easy breath in. And then we're going to be very mindful about pressing this air out. Exhale and count to 10. So it's a slow, thin strain. You're not forcing it all out like a balloon that's popped. You're probably fine till 5. And then you start to feel like you kind of run out of air. Keep going. At the very end, just let your inhale come in naturally. Notice how without any focused effort on your part, but just with the lungs repressurizing to the air pressure in the room, you take a nice, smooth, strong breath in. That's how you increase your lung capacity, through the exhale, ironically. So we're going to take 3 more breaths to play with that, and then just see if we can fall into that deep breath rhythm. All right, so take a nice easy inhale. Exhale out, trying to count to 10. Take your time, like slow, steady stream. Know you'll have a sensation of running out of air, and keep going. Really try to press the last vestiges of air out, and then inhale in. And let that inhale come naturally when you reach that bottom point around 10. Exhale, count down to 10. Let your inhale come naturally, and one more time. This time, when the inhale comes naturally, now just keep the rhythm of the breath going without forcing it in either direction, but being mindful to really empty out as much as you can of the air on your exhale. Let it be a strong exhale. And we have 2 more nice deep breaths in this cycle here. Beautiful. All right, just release that focus and notice how much focus you had for the duration of that exercise. That is a lot of mental and physical energy that you just coordinated. So congratulate yourself. You sometimes feel like, well, I didn't do anything but lay on the floor at my back and breathe. You can't really call that working out. That is an internal workout of epic proportions, truly. Because when do you ever exercise your lungs that intentionally? Never. Really, right? So they're an essential part. They are the very foundation of life. So when we address the health of our lungs and increase our capacity, we actually, in fact, truthfully, scientifically increase our capacity for the life-giving power of the breath. It's not an exaggeration. It may seem silly, like an overstatement of a very simple fact, just like saying, we're very lucky to have water on tap, right? That's potable and we can just drink it, but it truly we are. So one of the things we're doing is identifying these fundamental things that we can be essentially deeply grateful for and commit to doing for our health, that don't cost anything, that are imminently available to us. It's a beautiful thing, right? Not expensive, impossible, complicated therapeutics, just super basic. Water and breath. And those are really the two things we've talked about so far. Now we're going to add movement, which is also intrinsically available to us, right? You can keep the eye pillow on the eyes. If you feel like you'd like to take it off, you may. I'm going to take mine off, the very bright, just so that I can kind of keep track of what's going on in the room. You may need to peek periodically. I'm going to grab my towel roll here. I'm going to place it underneath the base of the head. You may notice I unrolled it a little bit. And that's because I know that when it's fully rolled up, it's a little too high and it props my head at an angle. But when it's unrolled and it's just a little support for the back of my head, I'm able to nod my chin down towards my Adam's apple without compressing it. So I have plenty of space for a nice open, easy neck, but the chin is angled down so that if I were to draw a line from the center of the top of my ear down to the center of the earlobe, it would follow the edge of my jaw and line up right in the center of my shoulder, rather than having the chin tilted up, which would bring the ears pointed up to the ceiling, that bottom point. So that's how you know your head's in the correct alignment. And then you should have real release and ease of movement side to side of the head, right? That's how you can tell that you're in a good spot, that there's no compression and no tweaking there. And that's really where you want to be held, because you should feel a reciprocal relaxation and release in the ribs, that they're really able to drop down because they're not being pulled up by a head that's dropping out of alignment and tilting out of place and finding compression in the back of the neck. Okay, so another very simple thing, being in alignment is the most efficient. There's 0 points in the body that is the most efficient way to hold yourself. And if you can find it, you get a tremendous amount of relaxation and also ease of movement, as well as correct muscle engagement. So from here, we're going to take our blocks out of the way, if they were on either side of you, mine were for some reason, and take your feet to the outside edge of the mat, find a soft bend in the knees, and then just begin a little easy windshield wiper from side to side, soft and easy. So we've supported the upper spine in this pretty lovely neutral extension, which should allow the low spine to hang long. It doesn't have the compression or hyperextension or weird alignment that it usually falls into when we're standing or sitting. So we really neutralize the upper spine, and now we get to soften the lower spine, melt it. So this is not a big range of motion exercise. We're not whipping the knees side to side and trying to get the maximum range of motion or big stretch on the outside of the leg. That is fully available to us in other contexts. This is a different game entirely, but I really want to emphasize this. We're trying to drop down and into the body and find release in the joints. So we're trying to kind of unravel maybe some tension patterning that just gets built in there, right? So this is a softening of those support structures, big postural muscles in the back and the seat, back of the thigh, back of the shoulders. They get stressed out when you're not in neutral alignment with the head and shoulders. But they're in a sort of forced supported neutral, not negatively forced, just held. They're stabilized there. Okay, and now we're going to bring a little bit of ease in the range of motion to the upper spine. So the next time your knees come to center, take a pause. We're going to do both of these together. Go ahead and take your arms out wide to the side so you feel a stretch across the shoulders. Hopefully we've got plenty of room here to reach out wide. I know sometimes in our spaces that width can be at a premium, but try to find that. And then you're going to exhale, take your knees over to the right, And just gently glide your head over to the left. Go to the point where you don't feel any twinges. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, head over to the right, knees to the left. Try to soften the ribs, soften the shoulders, soften the hips. Inhale, center. Exhale to side. So you're kind of hypnotizing this pendulum motion in opposition to the spine. Trying to hypnotize your central nervous system. Inhale, the slow, steady, repetitive movement. Exhale. Inhale, knees and nose to center. Exhale. Knees and nose fall away from each other to the sides. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Two more here. And come to center. I should pause for a second. Let feet stay where they are, arms stay where they are. Soften the knees together to touch and see if you can melt your ribs and lengthen the back of the neck and lengthen the tailbone. So the back of the neck and the tailbone release away from each other and the ribs soften to the center to let go of tension that they might be holding. And you could feel things really lengthen down. Hopefully what happened is we kind of pulled some of those threads of tension out by sort of gently, very gently wringing the body out in opposite directions repetitively. And now those muscles can hang long because we gave them a little bit of length side to side in opposition from each other, which is the way the support structure works, right? So you should feel a little longer through the back of the neck. The chin can drop with more ease, a little softer through the ribs, and a little longer through the sacrum and tailbone. Maybe it didn't solve all your problems. We shouldn't expect to have all of our problems solved in 5 minutes, especially if they've been years in the making, right? But we want to feel a transition. And sometimes we're so stressed out, we're having such an out-of-body experience that we don't know what we're feeling. We just feel like, I feel relaxed, I feel sleepy. That's good. Maybe that's enough. You don't have to identify where the relaxation is in your body or what muscles feel soft enough to make you feel like you could go to sleep. Maybe you don't have to have any words for it besides that, right? So we're all in different places of how much we can proprioception where things are happening in our body and where those transitions are. But part of being able to grow into learning about where things are letting go in the body and how to intentionally release them is to slow down and listen. So we do that with breath, a very gentle, simple movement. Open the knees here, and then we're just going to lift one knee up towards the chest and then lift the other knee up to the chest. Now this might be a position where you feel a little bit more compression in the neck now, right? Because there's more pressure back with the legs lifted, the legs lowered, it takes pressure off. So maybe now you let go of that support underneath the neck and feel the shoulders and the neck lengthen out, and that becomes really therapeutic, right? Maybe you keep the towel back there, but you want to make a decision consciously about whether it's still supporting you in that position or whether you get more length and release by getting it out of the way. Ultimately, you want to be able to lay on the floor with relaxed ribs and a nice long neck, and no hyperextension in the neck, meaning the chin's not pointed up to the ceiling, it's pointed down towards the chest. But who knows, right? We don't know what's going on with the body unless we start paying attention. So that's what we're trying to figure out. With the knees into the chest, we're coming to a very gentle side to side rock here. A little bit more melting for the hips. Let's talk about the hands and the use of the arms. We're doing a movement class, so we feel like it must be exercise. That means we must be doing bicep work. If we're using the arms, it has to be muscular and we have to pull hard. Wrong. It's okay to be wrong, but it's wrong. It's just conditioning. part of it's just how we use our hands. They grab things. So we tend to grab and pull because that's our context for using the hands. In this context, so let's stop and center so we can really feel this. Put the palms on the knees and let the elbows hang down towards the floor and let the shoulders melt back and just let the legs be heavy. And that's where you find the weightedness here. And then come into a little side to side rock and soften the muscles in the back. Soften the back of the hips, soften the shoulders, and give yourself 2 more nice deep breaths here. Okay, land center and release the feet down wide on the mat like we have been. Great. And just take a moment to get a little softening through the soles of the feet into the mat. Release the arms down by the sides and feel the back of the legs soft. Maybe like you could just wobble the knees in and out and you would feel the thigh muscles wiggling underneath, back of the hamstrings and maybe even the quads. Feel a little loose. You can take your palms to the top of the thighs and just soften those muscles, go side to side with them. This is release work, you guys. It's really different from standard exercise practices. So if you're kind of lost in this, you go, I came here to get some big sensations, you might be feeling like you're missing something because it's a little anti-sensational. That is actually the point of 0 point alignment, of finding that release. Okay, so now what we're going to do is locate your pressure point balls. Mine are right up here by my head, right? Mine are 2 different colors of racket balls. I got one tube that was all pink and one tube that was all totally the same, but just different colors. So it does not mean anything. I'm going to take these and put them in my imaginary back pocket. So if I was wearing jeans instead of yoga pants, I would just put these in my back pockets and I would push them down into the bottom of the pocket, the pointed part, right? And that really ends up being just about an inch or 2 above my sits bones, right? And then you just kind of soften in here, melt yourself into the floor, and then find a comfortable position with the arms. Hopefully, this position here is not overly sensational, right? We're all going to have a little bit different things going on because we hold ourselves and our bodies a little bit differently. So the first thing to notice is, how does this feel? I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Does it feel like barely tolerable, or does it feel pretty relaxed? Mostly, we would expect, unless we had something acute going on, which many of us do in this area. It's not out of the question at all. But hopefully, in an ideal world, we would come onto these points and we'd go, that's not a lot of sensation, not a lot of feedback, right? But what we might feel is if we put a little bit more intentional contact through the soles of the feet, maybe particularly through the big toe and pinky toe side, and we push back a little bit towards the shoulders, all that spinal relaxation that we did might give us a little bit more tissue length, just a little bit more space along the line of the spine. And we can help that process with our breath. Remember that nice deep breath we were taking? So take an inhale here. And exhale. We're going to breathe out like we did in the very beginning. And push all that air out, trying to count all the way down to 10. And then let the inhale come naturally. 2 more, just like that. Make sure that neck's nice and long, the chin's loose, but knotted in, just like we talked about.
And from here, now this may be a place where you feel more sensation. You want to make sure you have those 2 points directly across from each other. So if you put a ruler and sat down on it, the 2 points would be in line on that ruler. Now, perhaps for this, you bring the heels a little closer to your seat. So you have a little bit more control. Bring your feet roughly parallel back, hip width distance apart. And then swish your hips gently side to side. And this may be where there's a lot of sensation because all of our big postural support muscles land down here at the base of the spine. This side to side motion should actually move the balls. They should move the points a little outward with each shift. So I'm going about 2 to 3 inches in each direction. That's actually a fairly big movement. Keep it within a place where that tailbone feels relaxed in the middle of the spine. You want to sort of be depressurizing those areas. And as I'm talking here, my points are migrating outwards towards the curve of the hip, towards the hip socket. So not the back of my seat, not the tailbone and sacrum. They're making their way towards the divot, the crescent to the hip socket, the valley where the hip comes into the pelvis, okay? And then you can adjust them at the end so they feel snug. So you can rest the tailbone down on the ground flat. You feel the mat underneath you. You're not propped up on those points anymore, but you also feel the points snugged in and they're not moving and they're right in that crest of the hip. And then you inhale, open the legs. So knees cut butterfly open to the side. You can bring the soles of the feet towards each other, or you can just rock to the edge of the foot. And then exhale, bring the knees back towards each other. Right? Soften your arms so the palms rotate open and your collarbone, let it be nice and still here so that your hips are getting the action, but you're not activating them through the shoulders. Sometimes the shoulders try to kind of squeeze in along with the movement of the legs. Maybe you notice that, maybe you don't. It's fine. I'll say lots of stuff. Not all of it's going to connect in. That's not happening. I can't feel that at all. That's fine. Right? 2 more nice deep breaths. Try to soften the ribs down to the floor. Sometimes we focus so much on the hips, we start to arch the spine. We want that tailbone to stay nice and long. And then soften the hips. Let's pause the next time we come up. We've done this enough now in terms of the shifting side to side, that skateboard image and range of motion, and the butterfly open and close, that we should have a sensation of where we might like some more attention and feedback on the back of the hips. So maybe move those points inwards towards the spine again, maybe up a little higher, down a little lower, or maybe keep it in the crest of the hips and move it down a little lower or up a little higher, depending on where you're feeling the need. And your body, kind of like being thirsty after a long hot walk in the sun, should be telling you, there'll be a little sensation of like, oh, just if I just had that, but a little over to the left, or maybe your mind is kind of wildly creative and says, what would happen if I put one point down on the sits bone and the other up on the back of my hip, almost to where my belt line was? What would that feel like? And then I rock side to side. There's not a wrong answer here, and that's where we get more into the sort of exploratory aspect of this, which is not me giving you very specific direction, right? This is more about what feels good, what needs your attention. I really invite you to explore that because it's one of the primary ways we learn about the body. So we'll take 2 more nice deep breaths here. Remember that nice long exhale, which will invite a full deep inhale spontaneously, right? Really emptying the air out, pushing out the last of the exhale. And then the inhale just comes of its own accord. It's sort of a beautiful thing, the way the lungs work when we tune into that. After you're done, go ahead and take those points out. we're gonna do a little gentle, and just set those, the massage balls to the side. And then we're gonna take a gentle supportive twist. Now you can grab a hold of your blocks on their medium setting. Put them down below the hips, but just, so top edge is sort of level with the hips. Just below. And then you're going to stretch the left leg out long and draw your right knee into your chest. Notice how your ribs respond to that range of motion. Are you able to keep the back of the ribs nice and long when you make that transition? And are you able to stretch the front of the hip there? You're gonna interlace the hands on the top of the knee and give yourself a full deep breath here. I'm gonna call this your hip sling, and you can feel that that right knee, which I drew into my chest, is slung there. And I want to breathe into that hip sling. So it's wraps around behind and then up in front of the hip. So take a nice deep breath through that whole complex, all the way into your low back. And then exhaling, softening the hinge of the hips. Again, not dragging that leg into the chest with the arms, but just letting the hands be soft and let the arms hang off the leg. Take the left hand on your right knee, right hand out to the side. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, bring the leg across your body, over to the left, and then find that block underneath the leg. Drop the tailbone down and give yourself some nice full deep breaths here. Your goal here is just rest the weight of the leg heavy. If it feels like the leg is not quite resting, like that's a little bit too far to go, and you come into an extreme range of motion against your will, and you can't really relax there. The whole point is to rest the weight. So you may find a little easier if you take a towel and then drop your weight into that towel, right? That's a beautiful support structure there, and just rest. And wow, that's a lot of, it's a less sensation, you guys. And we'll keep repeating some things. This is less sensation when I have my leg higher up. I don't feel the stretch in the side of the thigh as much, but what I do feel is more space and release in my sacrum and in the back of the hips. And what we're really trying to do is unlock the length of the spine with this twist, not necessarily get a big stretch for the outside of the thigh. That's a different yoga class. That's a different practice. There's absolutely value in mobilizing that. But what we're doing here is really central, really dealing with the trunk and the release of the place where the joints come into the trunk, right? So the sacrum and where the two halves of the pelvis come into that sacrum and tailbone in the back. We're trying to let it open up, be long and soft. Take the pressure off. And I have not done much with my chest here. I just really rotated my low body. My upper body's easy. This is already quite a twist. Yes, there's more range of motion I can add by turning the head on top of it. But what it can bring is more tension in the lower body when I add the head. So you need to pay attention to that and find the balance of the work. Inhale, bring that knee back into center. You're going to draw the knee into the center and just do a little easy bounce here. Soften, soften, soften the back side of the body, the shoulders, and release your tension down. And we'll do 2 nice deep breaths here. Good. Release that leg down. Open and close the knee. So when I release the leg down, I actually set my right foot onto the floor with the knee bent. And I'm just going to open and close the knee. What we want to pay attention to here is the hips. So before you open and close the knee, place the foot down Feel long in the tailbone, maybe push through the foot and drag your tailbone long underneath you, slightly picking the hips up, going longer through the low back. And then make sure your hips are level. So your right and left hip bone are directly across from each other. And then you're gonna open the right knee really slowly so you can feel if your hips are following the knee and try to keep them steady up to the ceiling. We're probably only gonna go to about a 45-degree angle. Notice what the ribs are doing. Are they tensing up and tightening against the movement of that leg? Can you keep them soft so there's not a lot of reciprocal motion in the back? And then exhale, come back. This is like the most gentle Pilates you'll do because you're trying to keep the rib and hip stability. I'll move this out of the way. Put it over on the other side so it's ready for us. But you try to keep the rib and hip stability that you do in Pilates, right? And still create some soft release in that hip socket without a lot of work. So go ahead and take thumbs to the bottom points of the ribs and fourth finger, so not your pinky finger, but the ring finger, goes onto the hip bone. So you're really spanning the waist here, right? And then you can feel that structure, that column-like structure in the center of the body, being nice and stable and still as you inhale, open the knee and exhale, close it. And you like really just going a couple inches to the side and back. And notice how relaxed the spine is, being supported in this neutral position and still having range of motion in the leg. Easy does it. Is the name of the game. And your big ironic revelation is less is more in this class. You're gonna get more benefit from less sensation. It's really counterintuitive to how we approach our bodies, how we use them in most contexts. Great. Pause and shift. We're gonna go ahead and bend the left knee in to start. You're gonna bend it in fairly strongly. Just find the ankle underneath the knee. And then you're gonna stretch the right leg out long. Notice how relaxed that side is. We just did a twist on it. We just did all this release work. It might actually feel like it's a couple inches longer. Maybe it is. Who can say? But if it does feel longer, we've accomplished our job, which is to open up that tissue and let it release some of those big postural holding patterns that we all have because we're upright creatures. I'm a big fan of the towel roll today, you guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and just put it over here on this side. I don't usually practice with it. I usually let my leg come onto the block and it's a nice resting place. And I have total range of motion to do that. But what I'm finding with the towel roll on the block is that this is actually way more beneficial to the length and the release I'm looking for. So we're gonna go ahead and draw the left knee into the chest, interlace the hands, and take a couple of nice deep breaths here. Maybe bob the knee into the chest a little bit. See if you can get some soft release in that hip flexor, the left side. 2 nice deep breaths. Notice how your ribs and hips responded to this shift. Did this left hip hike up? Did your ribs pop up when you move the leg in? And really starting to pay attention to those things to notice your placement in these other contexts, right? Good. So we're going to take 2 nice deep breaths here. So just kind of soften the shoulders, melt the collarbone open, drop the elbows down towards the floor, let the leg melt into the chest. And now we're going to take this sort of soft released pose. We're going to take 2 nice deep breaths. Easy inhale to start. Exhale, press the air out for a count of 10 or close to. Naturally inhale in. Press the air out. Good. Now, we're gonna go ahead and place the right hand on your knee, left hand open to the side. Okay, before we move into the twist, take an inhale here and just check on your chin. Is it gently nodded in towards your Adam's apple without squeezing? So you have ease of motion side to side in the head. Or have you hyperextended it while you were focused on other things? Keep returning to that neutral head position. It affects the entire spine. Take a nice deep breath here. And exhale, bring the leg across the body. Find that support underneath you, that maybe with that towel roll up on the block. I'm loving that. It's just a relaxed perch for the leg. Releasing the weight of the leg down is helped by my right hand on the knee or the thigh, just resting there. And then I'm softening my chest up to the ceiling. So I'm not dealing with the rotation of the head, which reintroduces pressure and tension down the spine, and just letting the spine hang long and finding some softness here. Good. Excellent. Now, we're going to gently turn your head, if it's available to you, on an exhale over to the left. But don't go any further than you can with ease, right? As soon as you start to feel some sensation building in the low spine because of the rotation in the head, come off of it. There's definitely more we can do to work on that rotation and value from it. But what we're doing is really trying to lay into the released aspect of this, particularly through the low back and lower spine. One more full deep breath here. That whatever rotation is easy and natural in this position. Good. Inhale, slowly come back in. Draw your knee into your chest. Remember to soften the elbows, open the collarbone, release the ribs, and just melt the leg in rather than forcing it. And just do a gentle bob here of the leg. So you're really allowing everything to return to this parallel alignment, right? From your big rotational twist that we just did. And then you're going to release the sole of the foot down. First things first. Now, when you release the sole of the foot down, that left knee is pointed up to the ceiling and the right leg's extended out long. Tuck your tail, not in a deep tuck, but just lengthen the tail underneath you and kind of drag the hips a little bit, see traction, that sacrum underneath you. You should feel it lengthening down, sits bones dropping towards the heels, arms open to the sides, and not off the shoulders, but just a little below. And then from here, you want to check and find neutral ribs. So they're softened into the body. Center of the sternum is lined up with the belly button, and pubic bone, which is lined up with the nose and the crown of the head. And then your hips are directly across from each other. So that right hip bone and left hip bone are like on the same, like an elevator that's on the same floor. You're gonna have one higher or lower than the other. Then from there, you're just gonna, without moving the hips, open the left knee to the side, roll into the side of the foot. And exhale, come back. If you're not sure whether you're moving the hips and ribs, if they're responding, take thumbs to the bottom points of the ribs and third or fourth finger to the top of the hip bone. So you're spanning the waist. Keep that still in center. so you don't have one side longer than the other. And then inhale, open your knee out to the side, and exhale, come back. Maybe you do notice the ribs and the waist responding. See if you can minimize that. Inhale, open. And exhale, because of course there's going to be some response. We want it to be quiet, and we want stability in the center of the body while we have mobility on the outside of the body. Inhale, open, and exhale, soften. One more here. Excellent. Come in, bend your other knee. So now both soles of the feet are on the ground. Take your feet wide to the edge of the mat. Make sure you're lining up the tailbone and the belly button, the pubic bone, the center of the ribs, center of the collarbone, chin, nose, crown of the head, right? Then drop the knees together to touch and have 3 nice deep breaths here. You can come back to having that eye pillow over the eyes if you ever took it off. I did. I'm bringing it back in. I'm going to rest the arms down by the side. This is a great place to just sort of deepen into this real neutralized posture and soft muscles you've created. Notice if anything's different from before you lay down. When we took this posture at the beginning of class to right now, how is that transition? 2 more nice deep breaths. Easy inhales. And then a nice long exhale. Paying some attention to pushing that last vestiges of stale air out of the body. Not forcing it, but really emptying out. Good. Now we're going to take the eye pillow off again, just to allow ourselves to transition. A quick time check here. Good. We're just about to wrap up. We're going to finish with 2 final pieces. One is a little mini inversion for the hips, which is going to complete this decompression series we've done for the low spine and really allow, because the upper and lower spine are very relational, so it should allow more decompression and better neutral placement all the way along the line, right? All the way up to the crown of the head. So take this towel roll off to the side. It's perpendicular to the hips. Feet are hip width distance apart. For ease of motion here and getting the hips up, which can be quite a strain if you have any tension through the sacrum or low back, give yourself a little extra structure by taking a block in between the knees on its tall, wide setting. Just a little squeeze into it. This squeeze is not like you're trying to juice a peach. This squeeze is like you're just basically stabilizing the block in between the legs. You're just holding it there. It shouldn't be any sensation of like there would be an indent if you removed it, right? It's just a light pressure on the surface edge of the block. Doesn't go inward beyond that. Arms come down by the sides, and in doing that, maybe you've loosened up the ribs enough that the scapula, the shoulder blades are not frozen on them, and they can glide down towards the mid-back where they belong. So many of our shoulder blades have traveled upwards and implanted themselves in our neck so that they become part of our neck muscles. And then we become very necky, is a favorite term in Pilates. We don't want to be necky. We would like our shoulders to land. We want to feel them connecting into the waist. We want them to really belong in the middle of the back. And then the bottom connection of the shoulder blades is down into the waist. And when we reach our arms down long with the fingers towards the heels, after we've done all this great release work in the back, sometimes we can really feel them gliding in that direction. And then that gives our tailbone extra room to come down because that tissue isn't all lifted up into our neck. Beautiful, amazing thing, bodies, that they can transition so much geographically. It's like going from Russia to China. But of course, those countries have very specific connotations these days because of what's happening geopolitically, but just spatially, right? From Canada to Florida. Okay, from here, now we'll gently engage inwardly. So we feel a little inner thigh engagement. We also feel the sits bones, those bony protrusions underneath us, moving towards each other on diagonals towards the tail. So there's a little inward suction in the hip sockets in the back as well. And that helps us lift up. We're not going very high, so don't really try to leverage this from your low back. See if you can lift and keep the ribs quiet in front, and then slide that towel underneath you, so you don't have to go that high. And it goes low, so it's actually just above the sits bones, right? At kind of where those massage ball points were before. Lift the feet off. Take the block out from underneath you, set it to the side. And now you have these easygoing legs and hopefully these nice elongated shoulder blades. And now you have all the support for that elongation. And maybe you're feeling your spine release more. Every once in a while, I get enough release that it feels like somebody tipped an hourglass upside down. I feel all the grains of sand spilling down into the bottom chamber. And that's what this feels like. Everything's shifting downward. And it's lovely because this backswing of the body gets a little jacked up into your shoulders and neck, right? With our postural disengagements in front and overuse the back. This is the opposite. We're kind of engaging the front body and letting the back glide down towards the heels. Everything, the whole back structures sliding down. And guess what? We don't have anything to do now except rest and breathe here. Find a comfortable position of the feet, find a kind of movement around, finding where they want to land so that the hip sockets feel really light and easy. And then I'm going to sort of feel around in the dark here to find feel around in the light to find my dark, to get the eye pillow to put over the eyes. And just get a gentle pressure in again. So you feel a slight pressure on the temples, the arch of the brow, and the top of the cheekbones. And you let your arms fall out to the side and soften here. Breath 3, nice, deep, ease breaths. Good. Go ahead and take the eye pillow off. I'm going to draw the knees into the chest. Be easy about it. This is not a big pull. It's really just lifting the feet off and letting the legs fall in and letting the hips soften here. Find some ease. This towel is not very high and your hips are not so pushed down on it anymore that you've lifted the feet off. So you can gently walk it out from underneath you. And if you go kind of slow with it and just push on it with your thumbs, you can slowly de-escalate your elevation and slowly descend, right? And you feel one vertebra at a time coming down onto the ground. And as you come off of that towel roll, move it out of the way, place the feet down, soften your spine here, and just begin to move the feet, knees gently side to side. So find that easy bend in the knees again. Very last exercise we're going to do here is bring the blocks out to either side of the mat. After you switched your knees side to side and feel really easy in the hips, place the soles of the feet together. Prop the knees up here with the blocks by tipping them in so that the top flat edge of the block is against the flesh of the thigh and calf, about mid-thigh and calf level. And you could just rest the weight of the legs into it. And where exactly the block rests, you bring it a little up higher on the thigh, then and lower on the calf, right? To bring it in towards you a little bit more, then the knees end up being a little higher. And if you take it out away more towards the knees, then the knees get to lower a little bit. So, but we don't really want to be in such an open place. We want ideally about a 45-degree angle or a little higher if that's your comfort zone where you feel tension release, right? You don't want to be hanging out in that place where your thighs are vibrating to hold this and it's a big inner thigh stretch and you're like lots of sensation. Again, returning to that place where you have a lack of sensation, which means that you found ease in your alignment and then allowing the bones and muscles a little bit of hang time. And this is where the yin practice of yoga really influences this work because it's allowing us to release holding patterns. That's very valuable. And we'll soften here, closing the eyes and giving yourself a few nice deep breaths. In this position, if you notice that your chin keeps drifting upwards so that your throat is open to the ceiling and you find you're arcing away from the floor, the back of the neck and the chest, the perfect thing that you can do for yourself here is just unroll your towel roll, one or two rolls, and place it on the back of the head. And then you'll find your chin nods very easily into your chest and your shoulders relax into a nice elongated space in the back of the neck. And that's where you want to train your body to land as you're neutral. This can be a great place to place your eye flow over your eyes. You're just going to be in this rested, supported position, right? And this beautiful thing to put the body in a place of support for about 5 nice deep breaths here. You don't have to count. I will. And then you can finish up your last breath and we'll end together. So really the only thing to do here is to just rest into this shape, into this space, and as much neutral, released softness in the body as you can. And if you notice there's places, like I feel a little tightness at the top of my right shoulder, which is a place that kind of continually has some tension. If you notice spaces like that in your body, go ahead and give them a little extra breath and a little bit more intentional release. Just travel through the body from head to toe. Pay attention to what needs your attention. when you finish your next breath cycle, take a moment to transition, perhaps taking your legs off of the blocks and just stretching them out nice and long, moving the blocks off to the side, possibly moving the towel up from underneath you if it's under the head, maybe putting one hand on your eye covering so that when you roll to one side, your eyes are still shielded from the light of the room you're practicing in, and just come to resting on your side. You might enjoy putting a block or that towel under the head, right? Or an arm, so that your head is not draping down. And then keeping the eyes closed, turning the head down towards the floor and pushing the floor away with one arm. You can push yourself up to seated. Slowly coming back up. Welcome back. We find that this practice is really beneficial for the layers of tension that get built into the body due to stress. Stress has a lot of negative effects, and we hear about plenty of it in news articles and scientific research magazines. But the real thing is how we experience it and our awareness of it. So we want to come into a place where we've shifted out of a fight or flight adrenalized mode and into a more restful place, which is where our body can begin to recover its equilibrium. So that is the goal of this practice, and what we try to travel through to find our way into tonight to prepare us for rest this evening. And may you have a really restful night. And if you have deep and even sleep tonight, so much the better. Take care, you guys. Namaste.